What's up, everybody? Welcome back into Lettermen Row, into the Indianapolis Convention Center for the NFL Combine. It's the final day of interviews. Interviews are officially wrapped up. There's actually some team stuff coming down on Radio Row over there in the foreground of the video, maybe the background, foreground. That's Andy Backstrom. I'm Spencer Holbrook. It is the NFL Combine Report presented by Byers Auto. Offensive line talking today. DeJuan Jones did not make the appearance, doing some extended medical things with the medical staff of the NFL. That's fine. We didn't get to talk to him. Paris Johnson, Luke Wypler, both had their turn with the media. Huge scrum for both of them. Safe to say the Buckeyes were again in the spotlight today, taking center stage here at the Combine. Just general takeaways, Andy, as we get done now hearing from all the Buckeyes who were over here, who we could, as Paris Johnson and Luke Wypler kind of steal the show this morning.
It makes sense why there was such a scrum, considering they might have two first-rounders of that bunch. If DeJuan Jones can work out well and obviously be okay medically. I know he was hurt towards the end of the Senior Bowl. I don't know if that has anything to do with this today, but if he is healthy, 6'8" guy, 375 pounds, clearly more athletic than people think he is, and with Paris Johnson as well, they made probably one of the better tackle duos in the country or that we've seen at Ohio State recently. Two first-team All-American guys. Luke Wypler was certainly intriguing today in his interview presence. Just got a good sense of humor. He talked about how he did stand-up comedy in high school. Definitely showed at the podium today. Just a little bit of sarcasm, talking about preparing for the 40-yard dash as an offensive lineman and as a center, no less. But he, maybe didn't expect to be here in 3 years. A guy that ended up being a 2-year starter and was really thrust into that role, and now he's here preparing for his pro career, whereas Paris Johnson talked about how this was always kind of the plan. Highly touted, 5-star guy, wanted to find a way to be 3 years in and then out to the NFL, and he accomplished that. And he talked about it just doesn't come with waiting. You have to work hard for that, but he accomplished it, and he's here now, and he could be a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I think he will be a top 10 pick by the time it's said and done. He's not going to run tomorrow. He's going to do the on-field drills. He's going to do the bench press. He said he's going to wait to run until the pro day. I think he wants to run sub-5. He told me in the hallway after everything was done that I can't be slower than Luke. And Luke Wypler wants to run a 5 flat. So that means, Paris, you got to be in the 4s. Sorry to tell you. So it's just something interesting. These guys were in great spirits. I think they know that Ohio State, the logo carries a little bit of weight around here. They know that they're in good positions because they're really talented players, and they know that they're in good positions because they trust their training. And I thought it was interesting. Paris Johnson talked about a little bit of Ohio State as being a transactional, service almost. I came to Ohio State because I knew they could develop me to get here in 3 years. Well, obviously, he latched onto the brotherhood. He loved Ohio State, but
right.
It does ring true. Luke Wypler, I don't think he, like you said, expected to be in 3 years, but guess what Ohio State did for him? Got him here in 3 years because he was a 2-year starter. That's pretty rare for a center. And so, the guys we got to talk to were great. I'm pretty disappointed, though, to be honest. We didn't get to talk to DeJuan Jones. I think the NFL media complex that's over here missed out because DeJuan is such a joy to talk to. We always love hearing from him, getting that insight. It's always a good time. So it is a little disappointing not to be able to hear from DeJuan, but as long as the medicals are good, if he tests, he's going to test off the charts. But maybe literally off the charts with the wingspan and the height and the weight. So he still can have a good week here, even if he doesn't meet with us reporters.
Yeah, that longest wingspan ever in the Senior Bowl history, 89.5 inches, which is equivalent to a 7'5" person. So large human for sure. I thought it was good insight from Luke Wypler, though, talking about the future of this Ohio State offensive line, and especially at the center position. Talked about how Carson Hinsman's someone that could be a play, and we've talked in previous videos about him kind of emerging as a guy with certain buzz going into spring.
Absolutely.
But Jacob James was a name that he also talked about. That was his backup this past season, and someone he spent a lot of time with in practice, and he certainly thinks that if he's healthy, that can be someone for that role as well. So I think going into the spring, something to keep in mind, even if Carson Hinsman is getting those reps, Jacob James, if he's healthy, it seems like that's the most logical progression for that position. Things can change, and the best availability is availability, or I guess the best ability is availability. And so if Carson Hinsman's the guy, then he's the guy. But I thought it was important that Luke did mention both of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big if for Jacob James because we haven't seen him on the field. Now we don't get to see him in spring practice. We're going to have full coverage of spring practice at lettermenrow.com as we move along here on the NFL Combine Report presented by Byers Auto. Jackson Smith-Njigba, CJ Stroud about to take the field in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. I think CJ is going to wow people with these throws. If Jackson is healthy and is feeling good, and he works out. I think he's going to wow people with the creativity and the route running, and it's a place where you're not really allowed to be creative because there's such a structure. I think Jackson's even going to get away with a little of that if he works out. The measurements are in for CJ, for Bryce Young. Now we just have to watch him work out on the field. Bryce isn't going to do that, and so CJ has a chance to be, in the spotlight here in Indy on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, Bryce checked in at 5'10", 1/8 inches, which is about where I think people expected. Maybe even a little taller than. Yeah, just a little bit taller than people expected. 204 pounds, which is a good weight for him. A lot of people thought he would be lighter than that. Maybe some of that's water weight, but either way, it's a good measurement for him. Hand size, I think, was 9 3/4. For CJ, he comes in at 6'3". No surprises there. 214 pounds, 10-inch hands. So yes, that's no surprise there. CJ's a bigger guy than Bryce. Where he does have the opportunity to show maybe a difference is on the field today, throwing the ball. And that's an opportunity that, Bryce Young isn't taking up in Indy this week. So we'll have to see if that has any move for CJ Stroud, if he's able to go up a peg and be the front runner, if he has a really good showing, or if things go not as well and he maybe goes down. Because there's really 4 quarterbacks. Yes, it's a 1-2 with CJ and Bryce. I think we both believe that it should be that way, but there are other 2 guys that have a lot of potential too, and Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, that people seem to be enamored by with their skill set.
It's just a crazy conversation to have, Andy.
Not a college output conversation, but raw talent and potential conversation. And for the NFL in this kind of week, that is such a big topic here.
Yeah, what we see on Saturday, folks, is not quite what the NFL scouts see. Obviously, with Will Levis being in the conversation, Anthony Richardson being in the conversation. It's interesting, though, that we don't grind tape. I like to think we know ball a little bit. We don't grind tape, but you watch these guys and you see C.J. Stroud at Ohio State and what he does, and it's like, yeah, that's the guy. Like that's a very good guy. But Will Levis said yesterday he's got a cannon. He wants to show it off. NFL scouts are going to be wowed by that because maybe he's the next Josh Allen. Anthony Richardson has all the physical traits you would possibly want in a quarterback. Didn't really translate on the field at the college level. Not sure how that would be able to translate on the field at the NFL level if it didn't on Saturdays, but these NFL teams are paid, these NFL guys are paid so much money to get these things right. So if it's CJ, then it's CJ. If it's not, then it's not. And I think that it's as simple as that. It really starts today, though. The interview process is done. They've met with all the teams. He's a cerebral guy. He didn't fail the interview tests, but he still has a chance. And you hate to say it like this, he still does have a chance to fail on the field. He also has a chance to be incredible on the field and really, really cement himself as, you should be trading up to get me. Just get on the phone with the Bears and get up and get me.
I think a lot of people will embrace that approach, though, of actually taking that opportunity to throw.
Yep.
A lot of guys decline the opportunities to work out here. Sometimes it's a valid reason. Medical-wise, Jackson Smith-Njigba not running the 40 because he hasn't had enough reps to do the 40 at his best. So that makes sense. Other guys, it's a little bit harder to figure out why they're not doing certain drills, but CJ is taking that opportunity. And I think, you made a great point off camera. Okay, yes, CJ didn't run a lot this past year, or really in his Ohio State career, but what's the need to run when you got probably the 2 best tackles in the country, for a tandem, that is, and they're both guys that could come off the board in the first round of this year's draft, and if they're protecting you well, which they did, you don't have the need to run, and he showed that he can run against Georgia. It just seems that that's the big knock, and you just have to wonder, well, if he had shown that athleticism that he clearly has throughout maybe all 12 games of the regular season, is this even a conversation this week about the number 1 pick? Because it certainly feels like then he would just undisputably be the guy, but it's hard to say.
And from standing around, we don't know a lot of pro scouts. I'm not going to hide from that fact, but standing around, you're hearing some buzz about just different guys. Obviously Nolan Smith has stolen the show from Georgia, running that incredible 40 time, all the testing. He's one of the big names that everybody's talking about here. Paris is obviously a hot name because people need tackles. Franchises need left tackles. But there's been a lot of buzz about CJ, and maybe that sounds a little dumb because he's a quarterback and he's going to be probably a top 10 pick no matter what. But there's not the same buzz that I expected to hear maybe about Will Levis. There's a little bit of that Anthony Richardson talk, but I think it's kind of simmered a little bit where it really is CJ and Bryce. This week. It still could change, I think.
Today, really.
Today it could change.
So.
But the bad news for us is we're leaving town and we don't get to hear the rest of that buzz. So, but I'm very excited to see how they work out because this is the fun day, right? Quarterbacks, wide receivers. Zach Harrison didn't work out. Ronnie Hickman didn't work out. Cameron Brown didn't work out. So we really haven't seen Buckeyes on the field doing things. CJ gets to throw. Jackson gets to run routes. I haven't seen Jackson Smith-Njigba run a route since October, and he was on a pitch count then. So, this is exciting for everyone to be able to watch what he can do because he's a really special player.
Absolutely, and I think he's got a lot to prove, and he wants to prove it. He was very confident yesterday in saying not only the best wide receiver in this class, but one of the best 5 players in this entire draft class. So he certainly has the confidence, despite not really playing all of this year, aside from those 3 games where he was barely in. And I think, he knows he has a lot to prove. There are doubters out there that question how hurt he really was. They question, why he's not performing the 40. There's still speculation, and he's aware of that. He knows that he needs to prove things. He knows that the pro day on March 22nd at Ohio State, he's going to have to prove it again.
Yep.
And he's confident he can do that.
Confident that he can do that today on Saturday on the field. C.J. Stroud confident enough to be throwing the rock. Maybe to Jackson Smith-Njigba. Who knows? Maybe they'll pair him up together, let him run some routes, throw it back to that 2021 Rose Bowl that was so special. 2022 Rose Bowl.
Technically.
I guess. Sure. It was the 2021 season. Give me a break. But Lettermen Row is heading back to Columbus. We will be having full coverage of Ohio State in the build-up to the NFL Draft. Pro Day, March 22nd in Columbus. That's going to be a great time watching all those guys work out yet again. Andy Backstrom will be there. I'll be there. Spring practice starts Tuesday. Huge for the future of the Ohio State football program. Full coverage of that coming at LettermenRow.com and the Lettermen Row YouTube channel. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for listening. Thanks for reading. We will see you back in Columbus for full coverage of the Ohio State Buckeyes, where we do it all year long. Thanks to Buyers Auto at Lettermen Row.